Chapter 1. Knocks in the Snow. The wind howled through the old pine trees like the keening lament of a forgotten world. Outside the wooden cabin buried deep in the Yukon mountains, the snow was falling thickly, each flake sparkling white like fragments of lost souls drifting through the night. Emily sat curled up by the fire, clutching a metal cup so tightly the liquid inside had long gone cold. The temperature outside had dropped to below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, or below -7 degrees Celsius, and the silence spread like an invisible curse. And then, there was a sound, a knock, very soft, as if someone, or something, was gently tapping against the wooden front door. She lifted her head, her heart pounded. It was not the sound of a branch falling, not the whisper of shifting snow. That knock, repeated, steady, like the uninvited knock of a guest. Emily stood slowly and edged toward the door. She did not open it right away. Instead, she pressed her ear to the cold wood and listened. The wind still shrieked outside. Then, in that heartbeat, the stillness was torn by a faint screech, as if metal were scraping across ice, unable to resist the curiosity burning hotter than fire beneath her skin. Emily cracked the door open. Before her stood a sight that buckled her knees right on the threshold. In the thick snow, like a quilt of frozen white, lay a North American lynx. Motionless, snow coated its back, making it seem like a part of the woods, like a sculpture carved from frost. But its eyes, those eyes were open, glowing in the darkness, a gaze sharp as steel piercing through night, right into Emily's heart. She did not scream, she did not step back, she just knelt there, hands clamped on the doorframe, the cold of the wood shooting through her trembling palms. A part of her wanted to believe it was a hallucination, a dream born from loneliness and sorrow. But those eyes, they weren't a dream. They did not regard her as a human regards an animal. There was no fear, no aggression. They looked as if they recognized her, as if they carried a message, perhaps a verdict or a whisper from a past long dead. In a flash of panic, Emily stumbled back. The door snapped shut with a dry thud. She pressed her back to it, her heart hammering, her throat dry as ash. Where did it come from? Her voice shattered in her mind. And why do those eyes make me tremble? Collapse like that? The small cabin fell into silence once more, but the air had shifted. It was no longer the hush of a wintry slumber. It was anticipation, as though the door was the threshold between two worlds. One safe, the other filled with memories she had buried beneath 10 years of frozen snow. She did not know why the lynx had come here, but deep in her bones, she understood. This was not a random encounter. It was a knock, from the past, from something still alive beneath the thick snow of memory. And when Emily pressed her ear to the door again, she heard something even more terrifying than the knock. No footsteps walking away. The lynx was still there, waiting. Chapter 2. Signs in the Snow Shadow. Emily remained kneeling before the closed door, her heart hammered, and her entire body seemed fused to the cold wooden frame. But outside, just in front of the cabin, the lynx lay still until she grew quiet, every breath soft in the hushed air. Each heartbeat roared through the snow-laden silence. After a moment when time seemed to freeze, the lynx stirred slowly, lifted its head, and those eyes remained radiant like a starry winter sky, unyielding, undiminished, standing out against the white oblivion. Emily rose, stepped out in a strange mix of fear and resolve, following the lynx with steps sinking into the snow, each step a whispered conversation with the past. The wind hissed through the wooden crack as she stooped under it. But the lynx's gaze never wavered, holding her, as though an unseen force was compelling her to face it. When the door fully opened, she stepped outside into the cold, alien snow. The lynx did not flee. It simply lay there, silent and enigmatic, waiting for acknowledgement. As she closed the gap to mere steps, Emily noticed something that stopped her heart amid the blinding white. In the snow beside the lynx, imprints stark as charcoal, was a small object emerging under the ice. She knelt, brushing away the snow to reveal a silver necklace, exquisitely familiar. It was the necklace Sophia used to wear before her sister vanished all those years ago. In the snow-covered expanse and crackling wind, Emily felt it pulse, like the heartbeat of a vanished loved one calling out. Her eyes moved from curiosity to confusion, and then she shivered, like destiny reaching through the past. She reached out slowly, touching the surface of the necklace. It was colder than the snow, like a frozen tear that never thawed. It felt unlike anything she had ever held. The silver gleamed in the dim light, reflecting the shapes of tree branches, the doorframe, and her own figure. In that moment, Emily realized this was no lifeless token. It was a reminder, a signal from a hopeless past. In her mind surged questions. Where did it come from? Why is the lynx guarding it? Did my sister ever set foot here? She looked up at the lynx again. It remained motionless, its head tilted as though waiting for her intention. Part of her wanted to run and embrace it. Another part trembled at what it brought, a map to an unwanted truth. Those eyes did not merely watch. They watched past, present, and future, transcending the laws of nature. In that frozen quiet, she heard a whisper, barely more than a breath that curled her spine, an invitation to enter the darkness of memory and trauma. Every snowflake landing on the necklace struck the heart like a pulse. Not of the lynx's, but of a disappearance still unresolved. She lowered her head, lifted the necklace, and placed it around her neck, like setting a piece of the past onto her bloodstream. Everything shifted. The snow became more than a white veil. It became a screen revealing sacred signs of grief and hope frozen beneath. Emily stood, clutching the necklace like steel, her gaze cutting into the lynx's silhouette. She realized the creature did not come to harm her. It came to guide, and she would follow, wherever it led, for what Sophia was waiting for was still out there. The scene ended with Emily stepping into the dark forest, the silver necklace like an icy beacon against the snow, and the lynx watching, silent, a sign, an unspoken promise. Chapter 3. Footsteps into the void. The snow fell, unceasingly, as if the sky was erasing all traces of the past, one layer at a time. But Emily did not forget. Her eyes tracked the lynx's paw prints etched firmly in the frosted white. Small, neat circles, full of purpose. They did not stray. They headed in a single direction, into the heart of ancient pines, leading toward a place untouched by light. She could not resist, as if drawn by an invisible strain, each step echoing in her chest like a drum reverberating into nothingness. Each footfall sinking into the snow felt like slipping away from reality. The sky above seemed to disappear. Only she and the lynx remained, sometimes hidden, sometimes emerging like a ghost, its gaze unblinking. Each time she paused out of fear or doubt, it turned its head and seemed to ask, "Do you still remember why you came here?" And she pressed on, drawn by curiosity and the sensation of touching something sacred. Then, it began. Signs, objects rising from the snow, a ragged scrap of blue fabric dangling from a branch, swaying in the wind like a beckoning hand. She recognized the pattern. It matched the dress Sophia wore in the last photo taken before she disappeared. She shivered, plucked it from the branch, held it tight against her chest. The wind shifted, howling like a scream stranded in another realm. She felt herself stepping into a place not human, but built of secrets not yet allowed to be revealed. The lynx did not lead her straight to an endpoint. It turned back, each time leaving another symbol. A rusted key lying nestled in frozen grass. Emily picked it up. It was still warm, as if just released from a living hand. A shiver ran through her fingers. A key, not to a normal lock, but to some door, either in memory or reality. Dusk fell, though the sky had not fully darkened. The snow turned ashen, and a faint golden glow flickered from somewhere distant, as if a light had been lit in a deserted house. Emily slowed, senses taut as bowstrings. Then the scraping, a faint but unmistakable scrape. Not wind, not branches, but a scrape upon wooden planks. Faint, but enough to scramble her heart. It came from where the light shone, a dilapidated house emerging out of fractured memory. The house stood among trees, its roof nearly collapsed, walls peeling, but the light was real, not electrical, and no sign of human presence. Yet the glow was undeniably alive. Emily stood frozen, clutching the rusted key. The lynx stood beside her, not looking at her, but toward the house, as if it were not a destination, but a warning. She stepped forward, each footfall through the thick snow brushing against layers of buried pasts. The door was unlocked. The hinge cried out as she pushed it open. It sounded like the house weeping. Inside, cold and dark, the smell of mold and old memories wafted through the hall. The walls flaked with paint, yet there were charcoal handprints, a child's drawing of two children holding hands. Emily's heart shattered. Sophia had been here, not lost, not taken, but held. By whom, or what, she did not know. Then, from the shadowed end of the hallway, a growl, not the lynx's, not the wind's, something else entirely, low, deep, chilling, like a razor slicing soul. Emily backed away, but the lynx blocked behind. It did not let her turn back. Not yet. She had to push forward, toward the final room at the end of the hall, where all truths awaited, where the key in her hand would meet its lock. And she stepped into the maze of what was forgotten, but never truly gone. Chapter 4. The Truth Buried Under the Snow. The final room at the end of the hallway was a silent, pitch-dark scar in memory, hidden, locked away, but far from healed. Emily stepped inside, the creaking wooden door shutting behind her like severing any way back. The darkness wrapped around her like the cold blanket of the past. And for the first time, the lynx did not follow. Inside, the sharp smell of dried blood and rust made her freeze. Long scratches scored the walls. Broken fingernails stuck in the cracks of wood. In one corner lay an old rug, its corner jutting up as if something beneath was pushing it. Emily approached, trembling, and flipped the rug aside, and there was no floor. Instead, a rusty metal hatch, with a lock, and the key in her hand fit perfectly. With a dry click, the sound echoed. Something breathed below. Emily yanked open the hatch, and a plume of cold air rose like a soul trapped for decades. A rotten wooden staircase led down into utter darkness. No lights, no sound, only her heartbeat thudding like a drum in her chest. Holding a flashlight, she descended step by step. The air was so cold it felt like someone was squeezing the air from her lungs. But she did not retreat. She could not. At the bottom lay a small, low-ceilinged, narrow room, rough stone walls, and on the floor, old blood dried stiff like pine resin. Nearby stood a wooden table scattered with blurred photographs, notebooks, maps, and a journal. The final page was stained with blood, but the words were clear. The girl was not missing. She was brought here. We could not keep her, but the lynx. It knows the way. Emily's heart stopped. She flipped through torn pages. A trembling, uncontrollable hand. The notes spoke of a group. Former residents of the town erased after the 1998 avalanche, who had hidden in the forest to survive, building this makeshift shelter. But amid despair and fear, they began to believe in signs from nature, and in a lynx they called the Keeper of Memories. The last entry recorded the date of Sophia's disappearance. She followed it. No one dared stop her, but that night there was a growl beneath the snow and then silence. Emily choked. Behind the thin sheet covering a bed lay a shadow. She lunged forward and pulled it away. A shivering, curled-up body, pale and trembling, but still alive. A man. He could not speak, but his eyes were filled with panic. His skin was ashen, lips cracked, yet he murmured, "Do not let it close the door. Do not let it return." Emily scrambled to support him, but his body was too weak, blood seeping from an old wound at his hip. He grasped her wrist, his nails scratching, leaving a mark, a reminder. Sophia has not gone, the lynx guides. She felt herself standing at the edge between life and death. One side held a truth coming into light. Had the survivors kept Sophia, or had she perished here? The other side held this dying man, fragile, emblematic of a choice that demanded urgency. And the snow began to fall inside the cellar, through cracks in the stone ceiling, as if the forest itself was closing in. Time was up. Emily knew. She had to choose. Either run back to the cabin, call for help, and risk losing the trail, losing the man, losing the path to the truth, or stay, keep him alive, and wait for the lynx to return and guide her further. She looked down at the silver necklace around her neck, the most vivid proof of Sophia's existence. And then, behind her, above the hatch, she heard footsteps, not human. The lynx had returned. Chapter 5. The Final Eyes. The lynx stood at the top of the stairs, its body dusted with snow, its eyes glowing with a light beyond any ordinary creature. It did not growl, it did not claw, it stood there, silent, like an ancient statue guarding a doorway between two worlds. The space around Emily crystallized. The man in her arms also fell quiet, as if he understood. That moment belonged only to her and that creature. two puzzle pieces of a mystery spanning over a decade. The lynx's eyes were no longer as fierce as they were that first night. They softened, flecked with something human. In those eyes, Emily saw a deep sorrow, not the sorrow of a predator, but of a witness, a soul burdened with memory. It stepped closer, slowly, every step deliberate, never taking its gaze off her. When it was less than an arm's length away, it paused and placed a small object down on the ground. The silver necklace, still stained with blood, but this one wasn't the one she had picked up earlier. It was a different one, similar, but engraved with a name, Sophia. Emily knelt, hands trembling as she lifted it. Under the layers of snow and damp earth, part of the chain was entwined with a small lock of dark brown hair. She pressed her hand to her face, feeling as if the sky and earth were collapsing on her. There was no more doubt. Sophia had once been here, and now she was nowhere except in the lynx's guidance. The blood-stained silver necklace, the oppressive silence of the snowy woods. The lynx turned, unhurried, without regret. It exited the hatch, its form fading into the snowfall. Not once looking back, only deep paw prints remained. But Emily knew, when the wind blew, they would vanish. She stood, in one hand, the new necklace, in the other, the memory of the man's suffering, like clutching a part of truth unfinished. But more important was the gaze she carried. The lynx's last look. It saw through her, named her, chose her. On the snow, human footprints merged with animal tracks. A narrowed trail led out of the forest, its end unknown. Emily knew this journey would offer no complete answers, but she was certain of one thing. Some bonds transcend reason, species, even death. And that night, standing in the wild white forest, holding Sophia's necklace, she whispered into the wind, "How did it know? And why choose me?" The answer, forever silent. Chapter 6. The Whisper of Snow. When the snow blanketed all old trails, when footsteps dissolved into the wind, and the sounds of the past gradually faded into silence, all that remained was the whisper of nature. Quiet, persistent, like a dream continuing beneath the ground. Emily never returned to the old cabin. She left with the surviving man, delivering him to a medical station nearly 2 days away. He never spoke again, but his eyes, even clouded by time, still held something that echoed the lynx's gaze that night, an understanding beyond words. Afterward, she told no one about the lynx, not because she feared disbelief, but because part of her knew. It wasn't something to explain, but something to preserve, like a prayer in the forest, like a silent vow from earth. Snow, a creature that appears only when a human heart opens. Emily continued to wear the silver necklace every day, not as an ornament, but as a reminder that some connections cannot be measured by reason, nor controlled by science. They exist on the boundary between life and memory, where a gaze can guide, where a wild creature can become salvation. Perhaps that lynx never truly belonged to the forest, nor to humanity. It simply appeared, at the right moment, in the right place, as a symbol of a connection that crosses every boundary. In the end, Emily understood. Empathy requires no shared language, only a look, a presence, a moment of silent communion between two souls, different in form, that can still save each other in the harshest winter. The lynx vanished into the snow, but those final eyes remain vivid in Emily's memory, and in the memory of anyone who listens to what the snow whispers when the wind rises. Sometimes, salvation does not come from a human soul, but from the eyes of a wild creature, silent but never meaningless.